2010, that like in Boston as in other parts of the country, there is a significant racial disparity in academic achievement and outcome, and the census data for Massachusetts bear that out too on educational attainment. But Big Sister, for most of its 60 years, has worked with the Boston Public Schools to try to improve the lives of children and indirectly, therefore, support greater and more, advanced educational achievement. Carol Johnson, this is a quote from the introduction she wrote for the Big Sister annual report this year. For over 60 years, Big Sister has been one of the proudest partners in helping to prepare students for life outside the classroom. Recognizing that school is about acquiring knowledge and skills, but also skills for learning for the rest of one's life and functioning in the world. Well, what are the mentoring outcomes from this study that I talked about? That the Little Sisters, the mentoring relationship raises the aspirations of girls. One of the problems that we're trying to address is girls who don't have good role models about workplace achievement, school achievement, advancing on to college and beyond. And Little Sisters have high expectations and aspirations about what they will do. Girls improve their grades if they have a relationship with a Big Sister. 75% improve their grades in math, 68% in science, and over 70% in reading and language arts. So it is definitely beneficial on the academic side, even though Big Sisters are not primarily tutors, academic tutors. Girls have academic success, right? Our goal is, as some of the other panelists have referred to, and Judge Jimmy in particular, that everybody isn't going to be a lawyer or a doctor or a college professor, but the goal is to try to get people to achieve their potential, whatever that is. And you recognize if you get them too late that potential might be somewhat more limited than it would have been if there had been earlier interventions, but to allow them to become productive, independent, constructive members of society, and not, to sort of repeat cycles of poverty and deprivation that may have afflicted earlier generations in their families. So it's a very important, that's very important to keep in mind, to have them achieve the goals and the potential for each girl. What are some of the problems that are avoided, right, when we have these kinds of things? I'm actually advance the slide. There we go. Almost 42% of women ages over 12 or older reported using illicit drugs. 17% of girls in Boston reported drinking 5 or more drinks in a sitting at least once in the past month. This is from one of the recent demographic studies. In 2008, 595 children were born to teenage mothers between the ages of 15 and 19. And the Big Sister experience improves these outcomes for all of them. They avoid drug use, tobacco use, skipping school. That number gets your attention. And teen pregnancy, because there's just this other person always asking them, did you go to school? How is school? What's your relationship with your teacher like? And it's not just, those same old tired parents who, are always asking you these inconvenient questions. So it's very important. In terms of raising aspirations and these experiences, we did an informal study when we started school-based mentoring a few years ago, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But which we just asked a lot of questions about the impact of school-based mentoring of the Big Sisters and the Little Sisters after the first academic year of the school-based mentoring program. And the stories about the little girls were incredible, because it was very frustrating for the volunteers who had to stay with the girl in the school. The girls had never seen the Charles River, it's right there. But there are communities in Boston that are not right next to the river. They've never seen the Charles River, never been to any of the museums. That we all these experiences that we take for granted in our daily lives. I mean, my son, I think he's on his, 20th foreign country that he's been to, right? And it's just, you know, criminal that, you know, that girls are not even familiar with their own city. So, it's terrible. So what do? We invest in children. The typical match costs about $1,000 per child to maintain and support with the training and the social work supports. But it's a very worthy investment. It's much cheaper than a year in prison or dealing with a person who is uneducated and not productive for the rest of their lives. And we have about 170,000 volunteer hours in a year that are devoted to this. So how do we get involved, right? You can become a mentor. The average match lasts for about 29 months, a little over 29 months. And as I said before, the 12-month minimum. People can join committees of our board of directors. They can donate or raise funds. 977 individuals and corporations are on the donor list for last year. We also do a lot of advocacy and budget and policy advocacy around children's issues and specifically programs for girls and gender-specific kind of issues. And so there's definitely a role for experts and lawyers on those activities. Volunteers counsel for human resource needs, tax benefits, other legal issues. One of the first things that happened after my husband joined the board, and he's a corporate lawyer, was that Big Brother and Big Sister in Boston decided to sponsor a used clothing collection business, which is now called the Big Brother Big Sister Foundation, which has been extremely successful. I think it generated nearly $1 million for the two agencies last year. But, you know, it was a joint venture and it needed legal documentation. And he was thinking, you know, Big Sister doesn't need those kinds of skills from me, but actually they did. And, you know, he was sort of the right guy in the right place. And we also have relationships with 71 corporations, colleges, and community groups to help us do the work. What are the mentoring opportunities? There is a waiting list because, you know, this whole matching process and getting enough volunteers, you know, sometimes, you know, the matches just aren't there. There is a waiting list sometimes between 200 and 300 girls. Am I getting that number right? Okay. And it can be more, you know, when the economy is down, this demand for services is greater. And so we have a Big for a Day program where you only have to commit a day and just hang out with girls and at programs that Big Sister organizes. There's school-based mentoring. We have programs in 51 public schools and community centers, and it's a weekly lunchtime commitment. Again, you know, very controllable, very limited. And then the sort of, you know, hallmark program, the traditional program of the Big Sister, Big Brother organizations is the community-based mentoring, which, you know, is the individual, you know, pick the child up at home, spend 4 hours or however much time a week with them, engaging in activities. So that is definitely a much more substantial commitment. I have to check the phone in case there's something going on, but it's not them calling me, okay. I apologize for that. So again, all of these things work to change lives for the better. Well, what about lawyers making a difference, right? Since that's the theme of the conference. So, one of the current board members is Leah McCauley, who's been a Big Sister. She established the Young Professionals Board for the organization that has fundraising events. She led the annual retreat this year. As I said, she's a member of the board of directors, and she's obviously a donor and has raised funds for either from her employer or others for the organization. Deborah Hall, who unfortunately we couldn't find a picture of her because she's a retired partner at a law firm in Boston, Hemingway and Barnes, and she was on the board of directors from 1990 to 2004. She was the board chair, I think, immediately before me. And she has been a capital campaign volunteer and has given a legacy gift for the organization. Another current board member is Foley Hoag partner, Essence McGill Arzu. And Essence, you know, is active in many things around town, but she's a very active board of directors member at Big Sister, the chair of the recruitment committee, a member of the diversity council, which I should have mentioned before in terms of recruiting Big Sisters. Most of the Big Sisters, of the about 17, or almost 2,000 Big Sisters, are white. But the Diversity Council has made a concerted effort to try to increase the numbers of women of color who serve as Big Sisters given the population that we serve. and about 560 of them now are women of color, largely through the efforts of recruitment efforts of the Diversity Council. And then this is us. This is my family, because it's been a family project for us, because my husband and I both have been involved longer than our son has been alive. And you know, this is what my husband does, and I already talked a little bit about the corporate work he does for the organization, and he's on the foundation board too, and you know, new business ventures come up, and he's very helpful with all of the documenting of that. The managing partner at Goodwin Procter has also you know, chaired our gala and has been very involved in supporting mentoring organizations in the community. And then this is just a list. I want to point out the last person on this list, who's the newest federal judge in Boston, Denise Jefferson Casper, who was on our board for many years and has been an active supporter. And so I'm finished. There we are.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted Judge Jimmy to talk a little bit, very briefly. You said you opened the paper and you saw that there were schools that were closing, so you had buildings available. How did you get this big idea started? I mean, where did you get your, you know, you have all these people who came in late. Where did you get your initial sponsors to get the seed money and the approval to do this?
Well, I'll tell you, just very, very briefly, much to my surprise, when you invite the mayor to come to the courthouse, the mayor actually shows up. And so when I started to invite folk, the police chief, they all showed up, and we started to talk about what we needed to do. And it's very difficult for them to say, well, no, we don't want to do it, because firstly, I understand it's a public safety issue, it's a health issue, it's an educational issue, and so they all just came to the table. I have a not-for-profit partner, which is MERS Goodwill, similar to your Goodwill here. By the time I went to my court and went to our Supreme Court and they bought in, I had $1.3 million in the bank. And so, and we put this school together in about 6 weeks. So it took me about 6 weeks to put together $1 million.
That's what I wanted him to tell you, is that he saw a problem and he got it done. You know, something started towards that problem. And then as you built it, then Walmart came.
Yes.
You know, so that was just the message. You do these big projects, and you can do it in 6 weeks, or you can be a mentor. You know, and there's just, you know, and all of these things, and you can do what Shreya does and change your career to affect the achievement gap. That's our message.
Thank you very much. This is great.